clicking, 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 clicking,
tick, tick,
clicking
tick,
live.
tick, 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 tickety tock, tick, tick, tickety tock, tickety, tickety. Oh, we're live.
Tick,
Tick,
tick, tick, tick,
tick, tock, time to rock.
tick. Hello.
That was pretty fresh.
Yeah. It was very, very fresh.
Hey everyone, welcome to our show. We're going to be kicking it live with a spooky flow here as we go through this video. Check it out. So you got to start. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
We need to learn from those people and learn how to make like proper intros, proper first, second introductions to our videos. So we're like, yo, what's up, everybody? That's how we're supposed to start our videos all the time. That's how we'll blow up.
I go TikTok, time to rock.
I know. I'm supposed to go, yo, what's up, everybody?
Hi, this is the Apostate Prophet.
Hello.
Hope you're having a wonderful day. All right, so what are we talking about? We're talking about...
I have no idea.
This video, wasn't this video that we're about to look at and go through? It's about 20 minutes long, I think 21 minutes long. But wasn't this a response to you? What was your challenge to...
So this was a
Saajid?
long time ago. I'm not even sure if that happened as a result of the whole Jesus exchanges, where we had a back and forth about Jesus and Islam and Christianity with him. There was something going on. I don't know. He and I, we kept having this back and forth, or it was about the sun. I don't know. But I said to him eventually, Saajid, you know what? How about we settle this in a debate? We actually sit down and have a debate about whether Islam is true or not. Let's do this. And then what he did was he said, we don't settle things like that. We settle things by chopping your head off, you apostate scum. No, but he did publish this video, which he titled "Debate: Is Islam True?" or something like that, and then basically quickly, briefly referenced my challenge and said, I have recently been challenged to debate, is Islam true? And I take the opportunity to make this video. And then he just talks about why Islam is true. The funny thing is, although this video is a response to me, it was published quite a while ago, I never actually watched the video because I made the challenge to have a debate. As soon as I saw that he made a response video, and it was like, we're not going to have a debate, I will now preach. I thought, yeah, okay, I don't care anymore. So I never watched it. I don't know what we're going to
So this will be new information for you.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
You might convert to Islam because, I mean, he lays out his case.
Probably.
He lays out his case that Islam is true in this.
Probably.
Powerful.
And
powerful stuff.
I will believe Saajid Lipham. Yeah.
Yeah, anything he says.
Yeah, anything. Pretty much.
What is this?
What is this, man?
David, do you vote for Trump? Let's go 2024. I've never voted for anyone in my entire life.
Really?
And I doubt I ever will.
Really?
AP's voting for Erdogan at the embassy.
I actually haven't voted for anybody in my life either.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
So, are you ready to get into this video, this powerful video?
Yeah, I will be. Our minds will be blown and we will probably come to the conclusion that Islam is true. Let's start immediately.
All right, let's get into this, ladies and gentlemen. So this is Saajid Lipham responding to AP's debate challenge by making a video that's called The Debate, even though it's him talking and sharing clips from Farid. So let's check this out.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome all viewers. Recently, I was challenged to discuss the topic,
see, that's you.
Is Islam true? So I'd like to take this opportunity to address this question for those who are truly sincere in searching for the truth. This topic is something we can approach from countless angles and discuss for the remainder of our lives, so it's not like one video could possibly cover everything. However, I'd like to begin this journey by mentioning 3 specific steps I believe one will follow in order to reach the conclusion that Islam is true.
That's interesting. He says, there's obviously way more evidence that he could give, but he's just going to share some of it. But we can assume that he's giving like his best stuff, right? I mean, if he's responding to AP's challenge, and let's suppose he thinks there's 50 hours worth of evidence. If he's making a 20-minute video that's responding to your debate challenge, he's obviously going to present his best stuff. That makes sense?
Yeah. It's kind of weird, the whole the way he even addresses this and starts is he has been challenged by me, which he doesn't mention, and then he says, for those who sincerely
the name that shall not be named.
Yeah. He later also made a video where like, stop following these people, and then there's just a silhouette of me on the thumbnail. It's so funny.
Aiden said, if Hikmah was a person, it would be Saajid.
Yeah.
The embodiment of hikmah. This man's got the hikmah, ladies and gentlemen.
You ain't got the hikmah.
So he says, there are 3 things here he's going to point out.
Step number 1 is acknowledging the fact that we human beings, as well as the universe we live in, were created. We were brought into existence. Therefore, something must have brought us into existence.
Yeah, AP.
Step number 2 is understanding that the one that brought us into existence, the one that designed all of this and maintains it, must uniquely have all of the most perfect attributes and be free from all deficiency. Then the third and final step is accepting the fact that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the messenger of that creator. The creator we refer to as God or Allah. Now, we could spend countless hours discussing any of these 3 steps. However, today I'd like to focus on step number 3, understanding that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the messenger of that creator.
All right, so he's
pretty lackluster so far. But,
yeah, it's just, at least, I mean, this is actually the most correct part of the video, in that he's saying, if we wanted to make a case for Islam, we would first argue that the universe was created, and then we would argue that the one who then we would go into the identity of the creator. So what are the attributes of the creator? And then we'd additionally have to make a case for Muhammad in particular. And then he says he's just going to focus on that third step, arguing that Muhammad is God's messenger. And that's what is usually sorely missing from, I mean, we saw this with Sneeko and so on. Hey, why should I believe in Islam? Oh, you need just like puppies, need to be potty trained. Human beings need a guide in life. And it's like, wait, what? And plus, I don't like pictures. Christians always have pictures.
Yeah.
I don't like pictures. And so, no, and like, wait, and people are asking, why should we believe in Muhammad? And he couldn't give anything, but Sajid's actually going to make a case that Muhammad's a prophet.
And we are trusting Saajid that he will actually make a very good case, right? Oh, wait a second. I had to plug in my laptop. I forgot.
He's got the hikmah. The hikmah. Yeah, I got the hikmah.
I always plan these little mistakes just to ruin the professionalism of your channel, of your streams.
Hey, yeah. I love the hikmah.
Hikmah. Okay.
All right, ready?
That Allah chose to communicate with us through prophets that he sent, and the final prophet he sent, whose message has been preserved to this day, was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, Farid Responds posted a series of 29 videos recently where he discussed this topic entitled
we should go through every one of them. That's
so today I just wanted to share some clips and highlights from that series. Because once we can accept the fact that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was truly the messenger of Allah, then the door of Islam opens and we have access to the truth, access to the divine revelation sent from Allah.
From Allah.
One thing I want to preface with before we begin is that an important distinction between Islam and everything else is that this tradition is based on proof. These aren't myths or unverified stories that have been passed down by anonymous.
Did you catch that? He's talking about the hadiths here. I think like their method of isnad criticism. Let me back this up a little bit right here.
Sent from Allah.
And of course, yeah.
One thing I want to preface with before we begin is that an important distinction between Islam and everything else is that this tradition is based on proof. These aren't myths or unverified stories that have been passed down by anonymous chains of narration.
The proof!
This is not based on guesswork or conjecture, but rather it's built upon scientifically verified, authentic chains of narration going back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Guys, did you catch that? Scientifically verified. Scientifically verified. This is scientifically verified, ladies and gentlemen. Tossed in science there.
There's one thing that confuses me. What he says, difference between Islam and everything else, is he actually saying what I think he's saying? That this is that Islam uniquely.
Yeah, everything else. Yeah, it's just Islam, because they have this method, which Muslims agree with, and everyone else thinks is a complete joke. Let me read. Let me see what he said again.
On proof. These aren't myths or unverified stories that have been passed down by anonymous chains of narration. This is not based on guesswork or conjecture, but rather it's built upon scientifically verified, authentic chains of narration going back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself.
Okay, that's obviously false. If you want to come to the scientific aspect of it, I mean, you don't have to mix in science into that. That is just completely out of place, and it's like throwing in a buzzword to make your case stronger.
Well, they call it the sciences of hadith and the sciences of this and so on.
But if you just want to talk about the historical aspect, if hadiths are historically reliable or not, you already have a huge problem here, where hadiths are. Among many problems, there is a problem that, according to hadith science itself, the hadiths were recorded, collected, and preserved, depending on some factors, including that the transmitters were upright, believing Muslims. There is already a bias here, which you cannot accept as a proper historical source.
Yeah, and how do you? And if you're talking about people who were generations before you. How do you know if they were upright, upstanding people who wouldn't lie? How do you know that? Oh, because it's in our records that these guys were. Wait. I thought you can't trust the records without the isnad. How do you ever get started with that methodology, right? In other words, if I say I got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, got it from so-and-so, who got it from Bob, how do you know if you can trust Bob? Obviously, Bob you would have some sort of record saying Bob is reliable. Okay, how do you trust that record of Bob? Because you're talking about something that's generations before you. Oh, we've got this other source. Okay, why do you trust that other source? Well, in other words, what? Because it's got this isnad. Okay, how do you know you trust the names on that isnad for the guy who knew Bob and said he's upright and upstanding? How do you know that? How do you trust that? Because the isnad. Okay, how do you know you can trust all those names? Because we looked them up in our. It's impossible to get started with this methodology if you take it seriously.
But this scholar said that guy is good, according to this other scholar who said that guy is good, who heard from this other scholar that guy is good. And I mean, Bob is obviously a reliable person.
Hey, check this out. You ready?
Yes.
This is from Joshua Little's dissertation. There are not a lot of non-Muslim hadith scholars. There's only a few that I've heard of. Joshua Little is one of them. He is a non-Muslim hadith scholar. And here he sums up the position of hadith scholars on the reliability of the hadiths. And so he's talking about, Bukhari, Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawud, all these, right? That hadith are unreliable. That any given matan, that matan is the actual like story or the content of the hadith.
Yeah, the text. Yeah.
That any given matan cannot be taken at face value as an accurate datum from the first Islamic century. And that any given isnad cannot be taken at face value as an accurate record of a matan's provenance, cannot be seriously contested for multiple reasons. He's saying that you can't trust the hadith, that you can't take these hadiths at face value, cannot be seriously contested. And then he gives reasons. His first reason is that everyone during this time, everyone of every religious background was making stuff up during this time. It says, firstly, there is an overwhelming prior probability based upon the ubiquity of fabrication and pseudepigraphy in late antique and medieval religio-historical pagan, Jewish, and Christian inscriptions. Second, there is the high frequency of contradictions within the Hadith corpus, which necessitates the occurrence of a huge amount of huge amount of fabrication, interpolation, and or, oh no, what's he going to say? 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 Mutation.
Whoa.
Like X-Men, and therefore skepticism towards any given hadith, saying you should be skeptical towards any given hadith. Thirdly, there is the ubiquity of fabrication and interpolation, both reported and demonstrable in the hadith corpus, which again casts doubt upon the rest of the corpus. Fourthly, there is the rapid, extreme mutation and growth of reports that evidently took place over the course of a century or more of oral transmission, which means that any, notice what he says here, which means that any given matan, regardless of the isnad, is likely at best heavily distorted and at worst obliterated beyond its original form. So best case scenario, it's distorted, heavily distorted. And it only gets worse from there because obliterated
I'm
beyond
confused.
its original.
I'm confused. Sajid just said that it is scientifically verifiable.
Yeah. By Sunni Muslims who like Sunni sources and approve of the Sunni methodology that they were told is this great methodology. This is what historians think of this method. They think it's a joke, right? And I'll just end here because he keeps going. He keeps wrecking the reliability of the hadith. Fifthly, there is the belated emergence of hadith as a genre and corpus, largely during the 8th and 9th centuries CE, which straightforwardly precludes the authenticity of most descriptions to the 7th century CE. What he's saying here is the methodology developed later, and therefore, when you're seeing these 1st century ascriptions, oh, so-and-so got it from so-and-so, the methodology didn't exist then. That's what he's saying. And therefore, when you see this list of names going all the way back, he's basically saying, come on, the methodology developed later. How were these guys who didn't even have the methodology yet, how were guys who didn't have the methodology using the methodology in the 1st century of Islam? It's like, and I'll give you an example of people who are doing stuff. There's a hadith, there's a Sahih hadith where Muhammad says, follow the sunnah of the rightly guided caliphs. And it's like, why would Muhammad be talking about the rightly guided caliphs? The rightly guided caliphs didn't exist yet. Someone could defend it and say, well, he's a prophet. He knew the rightly guided caliphs. Yeah. He gave them a lot of information on what to do after his death, right? Because that's why they ended up fighting wars over it. But that's a perfect example. Rightly guided caliphs didn't exist yet. Why is Muhammad supposedly talking about them? It's clearly fabrication, and the timeline is way off. Well, that's what Joshua Little is saying about the methodology that Muslims are using. The methodology came about more than a century after the time. How are you acting as if people in the 1st century were using this method that did not exist yet? It's weird.
There is another hadith as an example that I think of quite often, which is where Muhammad is supposedly talking about the Khawarij, the extremists who are neither Sunni nor Shia, and the hadith goes something like, did the Prophet ever say anything about the Khawarij? And then, yes, one day he said there will be people who will be religious, but their faith will not go beyond their throats, and this and that. It's obviously one of those things where it's like totally misattributed or entirely made up, along with many other things. Like it's just, it doesn't really make sense.
Hey, now notice we were just addressing, we were responding to Sajid's claim that there is this these hadiths are so reliable. It's such a great, they're scientifically verified. And any actual historian who looks at this goes, what is this nonsense? It's the stupidest method I've ever heard of in my entire life. But apparently someone wanted us to insult Muhammad, which we weren't.
Nice.
He just kept saying, he kept posting names, calling you Apis.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Isn't that good? Yeah. Hey, Daoud.
You know what I always do? I always respond to that with Mopus.
Yeah.
You know,
House of Hikmah is already responding, and so is Leo. But notice they're all calling Muhammad names now because of this guy.
yeah.
Hey, Daoud, Muhammad's a child molesting, murdering rapist. Your prophet. You worship a child molesting, murdering rapist. We weren't going to do this. We weren't doing. We're gonna respond to arguments, but you want to start with insults, right? That's fine. We are happy to insult your fake child molesting, murdering rapist of a prophet. Want to?
It's all your fault, dear Islamists who come with personal attacks. When you start this, don't think you can just say whatever you want and you will not get hurt in return. Your feelings will get hurt. Your religious feelings will get hurt in return. We know
your
exactly
religious
how to hurt
feelings.
them.
All right. So if you want us to continue heaping insults and abuse on your fake prophet, happy to do so. All right. So
Nice.
So Sajid's first little sub point there about the awesome reliability and the science. We're the only ones. I mean, think about the absurdity. Think about the absurdity. We're the only ones that have this method where you're using sources written centuries after the events, and then your guys come up with some methodology saying, oh, as long as we've got a list of names on there. And what do they start doing? They all start fabricating lists of names. But if you like the story and you like the list of names and so on, then this gets our stamp of approval. And you think that is like the greatest method that historians have ever come up with? It's the dumbest methods historians have ever come up with.
The funny thing is that the hadiths are not even by Muslim scholars, not even by the hadith scholars, considered as, this definitely happened. What they do is they declare something authentic or reliable by saying it has been reported by so and 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 so that this happened. So what they then do is they don't say the Prophet said this. What they actually originally used to say, and what serious Islamic scholars still say, is that according to the traditions, Muhammad said this, because they themselves can never be sure what he exactly said. So for someone like Saajid then to sit down and say that this is scientifically verifiable shows that he doesn't have a proper understanding of how science works.
Yeah, and if you read the non-Muslim hadith scholars, and what they're pointing, how this actually worked was, for a while, you would simply quote someone as an authority. You didn't have to be tracing this back to Muhammad. You say, I got it from so-and-so who was a respected person, right? So he was a respected figure. And you could quote this for a while. But as the hadith methodology starts developing, then they start tacking names onto that person. So I got it from so-and-so who got it from this other guy who's even earlier. And eventually they wanted to trace it back to a companion. So what happened was, as these stories are, as the methodology is developing, they're adding names onto their isnads to push it further and further back as the methodology is developing. And so they get to these, they eventually get to these isnads that go all the way back to a companion of Muhammad who heard it from Muhammad. When earlier versions of the hadith did not go back. They just, it's evolving. The isnads, the matins are evolving, and the isnads are evolving as they circulate. And it's scientifically verified. All right, let's get back into this.
This level of authenticity is second to none and is in and of itself a clear sign that Islam is the truth.
Look, did you just catch it? He just said this in itself, our hadith methodology, which we just saw what actual hadith scholars think about this methodology. They think it's a joke. But this laughable methodology is in itself evidence that Islam is true. That's what he just said.
Sajid, please.
This is your hero, AP. This is your hero.
Please stop, Sajid. Please.
All right.
You're embarrassing us all.
All right. It's funny because as dumb as what he just said was, it's nothing compared to when he starts playing Farid videos. Like
I
this
don't
only,
understand how
this
he can
only gets
possibly
worse.
reference. Yeah, how he can possibly rely on Farid, who is arguably one of the dumbest Muslim apologists that have made it out there. I'm not sure why he would do that.
Let's go.
And keep in mind, we reject many things that could be used to try and prove that Islam is true, but we don't accept what is weak in terms of transmission. We approach this.
Yeah, so we don't accept.
Very big of you.
we don't accept what is weak in terms of our methodology.
Yeah.
If you look at the non-Muslim historians who look at Hadith methodology, they think it's all weak. They believe you can get some kernels of truth that are contain accurate information, but it's massively corrupted. That's what they believe, and so it's all weak, according to these guys.
Topic objectively, and by doing so, we see just how
Do
important.
you hear this? What, like, why do you use these words?
Yeah.
We're looking at this objectively. No, you're not.
Authenticity truly is, because within this science, we clearly see how people fabricate stories, how people make mistakes when passing down information. So authenticity is one of many clear, unique proofs for Islam. And all of those different proofs together strengthen the truthfulness of this religion until there is absolutely no doubt
so
about
funny.
it.
It's like
and that's
he
what
doesn't
the
even
series
say
by Farid.
He doesn't even say supporting evidence. He doesn't even say evidence. He says directly proof. Like, I mean, you go directly there. Like, you can make a lot of strong cases in court, in philosophy, where you differentiate between proof and evidence, and you say that this is evidence, that is evidence, this is evidence. But no, he's skipping the line completely. It's like, this is proof. This is proof.
Yeah, and it's so insanely stupid. For those of you who are new to this, by the time you get to Bukhari has to go through literally hundreds of thousands of stories about Muhammad to get to the around 7,000 that he considered most reliable, the best of the best. And even these are filled with nonsense. What does that mean? If you're going through hundreds of thousands of stories that you regard as weak and fabricated and so on, you're dealing with a community that was very comfortable lying. And this actually came up in the Q&A of my debate with Kenny, because Kenny's attacking sources in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and so on, saying these were fabrications. And so someone pointed out in the Q&A, like, why did these Muslims feel so comfortable making stuff up about Muhammad? And so notice that's the problem, right? It's, Bukhari came up with a methodology to try and get to the truth. Okay, he's sifting through hundreds of thousands of weak hadiths and fabricated hadiths and so on. What does that mean? It means that the community felt very comfortable making stuff up, lying about Muhammad. And so why did this community feel so comfortable lying about Muhammad, making things up to defend their positions and whatever arguments they happen to be having at any given point? So think about this. It's, we've got this great methodology produced in a community that had spent centuries lying. Okay, that makes me not trust any of it. If you had this giant community full of liars spreading lies, and then you come up with a methodology that is supposed to get to the truth because it's got these isnads, but the isnads are being written in a community that feels very free to make stuff up. Oh, but they wouldn't make up an isnad. Okay. Sure, Saajid. This is funny stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's a metaphysical matter.
It is a metaphysical matter.
Ready?
Yes.
Get ready, because he's about to go into some powerful argumentation.
It just gives example after example after example until it just becomes so obvious that this man really was the messenger of Allah and received divine revelation. Man. So without further ado, let's get right into some of the clips of Farid's Proofs for Prophethood series, and I'll jump in with some brief commentary here and there, inshallah.
And remember,
why?
Okay,
why
so
there,
okay, so he's going to Farid here.
Why?
He's going to Farid. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, he's saying there's tons and tons of arguments and evidence that he can give. One, you've already seen what he regards as a proof. We've got our methodology of, it's not critical. See, how do we get this methodology? It's proof. It's proof. So he already regards the stupidest methodology, which is rejected by historians, as somehow proof that his religion is true. That should give you an idea where they set the bar. All right, now we go for Farid here.
O Muhammad, when we told you, indeed your Lord has encompassed the people. The term ahata, encompassed, is referring to Allah's protection of Rasulullah sallallahu
boy. Does he say more about this? Do you want to let him finish?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to decide whether to let people actually read the verse or let him finish talking first. Let's let him talk a little more.
Now, this is significant for several reasons. This in itself is a prophecy, because
he just called it a prophecy. The man literally just called this a prophecy. All right, we've got to go ahead and read the verse. We've got to go ahead and read the verse, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. We can pick a translation. So Yusuf Ali there. So this is Surah 17, verse 60. Behold, we told thee that thy Lord doth encompass mankind round about. We granted the vision which we showed thee, but as a trial for men, as also the cursed tree mentioned in the Quran, we put terror and warning into them, but it only increases their inordinate transgression. AP, do you see a prophecy in here?
Nothing at all. I see descriptions. That's it.
You don't see the prophecy? It's right there in the word encompass. Farid just said it. Everyone, I want you to read this verse. I put this verse on the screen for a reason, just so you'd read this. Farid just said this is a prophecy. Behold, we told thee that thy Lord doth encompass mankind round about. Ha ha! God encompasses mankind. Oh my goodness. It's a prophecy. That's what he just said. Everyone good there? So you got that so far, AP? That's the prophecy.
Fantastic prophecy.
And you know what? Let's do something fun. Let's actually look at the context to see if the context gives that.
Mm.
So we'll look at that. We'll look at the verse before and after to see if we're getting verification that this is some sort of prophecy. So we go to the verse before it. And nothing could have hindered us that we should send signs, except that the ancients rejected them. And we gave to Samud, the she-camel, a manifest sign, but on her account they did injustice. And we do not send signs but to make men fear. So verse 59 is one of the excuses for why Muhammad can't perform miracles. And then the next verse is, and when we said to you, surely your Lord encompasses men. So I'm not getting anything about a prophecy there. Let's check the next verse, Surah 17, verse 61. And when we said to the angels, make obeisance to Adam, they made obeisance, but Iblis did not. He said, shall I make obeisance to him, thou hast created of that? So then it goes into the story of Satan refusing to bow down to Adam because Adam is a creation and Satan didn't want to bow down to anything other than Allah.
Good guy, yeah.
Which made him
well done.
a faithful, devout Muslim.
Yeah.
So notice, there's nothing.
If I was Satan, I would think this must be a test. Allah wouldn't ask me to bow down to a creation. I will not do this, and I'm pretty sure Allah will appreciate that.
Yeah, notice what you just said is absolutely correct. I mean, if Allah, who's a cosmic trickster and always giving people, always putting people to the test, if he comes up and says, "Hey, you're all Muslims, right? Yeah, we're all Muslims. All right, bow down to Adam." Like, wait, what? Is the correct answer no?
Yeah. I would think, I know this one. This is a test. Clearly, I'm not doing it. So, yeah, that's what I would say. But no, that means I'm evil.
Check this out. This verse assures the prophet that thy Lord encompasses mankind in both power and knowledge, and that none of their actions can overcome his ability to protect and aid the Prophet. That's one interpretation. Others maintain that it refers to God's informing the Prophet of his eventual victory over the idolaters of the Quraysh at the Battle of Badr, and in general. The vision that God grants the Prophet is most commonly understood to mean the vision he received at the night journey when he was taken from Mecca to Jerusalem, blah, 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 blah. And then it goes through other interpretations. Alternately, some suggest that this vision refers to the dream the Prophet had. Notice, no one has any clue what this is talking about. Some say this, some say that. Some commentators say it means this. Some commentators say it refers to that. Some say this, some say that. And then we've got Farid in here saying, you see, it's a prophecy. So I just wanted to point that out. AP, by the way, this reminded me of my first encounter with Islamic apologetics, which was in prison. I had a friend who was the imam of the community, and he said, "Hey, let's go watch this video that really blew my mind when I watched it." And so I was like, okay. So we went down to watch this video. The entire video was on scientific miracles of the Quran. And they would keep doing this. And he wasn't catching it. Just like people don't catch it when Farid does it, right? They'll say, they'll give a verse and they'll say, oh, this means this. And then they would go into some long scientific explanation of how it's right. And I would look and I would just, that's not what it says. It doesn't say that. It's not saying anything like that, but he just did it, right? You know, right here, it says Allah encompasses mankind. This is Allah's prophecy that he would protect Muhammad in all of these situations. It's like, what? That's not what it says. It doesn't say anything about that. This is weird stuff, man.
This is similar to in the debate that I had on the weekend with that guy Hussein. He gave an argument for scientific miracles in the Quran, where he mentioned something. You probably heard of that reference. He mentioned something about how on the day of judgment, there will be a blast and something like that. And then he was like, and this is clearly talking about gravitational waves, and and the Quran predicted the discovery of gravitational waves before anybody knew it.
Powerful.
And I guess nothing to do with what is being said.
Yeah, this is so. Anyway, this is wild stuff. All right, let's get back.
As we all know, Islam started off in a very weak state. Rasulullah ﷺ, when he came out with his message, he went against everyone. He went against the polytheists of Mecca, the Jews, the Christians, the Persians, Zoroastrians. He went against everyone. Now, the Arabs of the time were not the most tolerant of people. They simply would not tolerate you if you were to insult their camels or their horses, let alone if you were to condemn them, their fathers, and their false gods. Now, referring to them as intolerant is a bit of an understatement. Take, for example, Badr al-Ghifari at Suq Uqab, which is the biggest annual marketplace. He basically stuck out his leg and said, I am the most cherished of the Arabs. Whoever is more cherished to the Arabs than me, then let him cut my leg. And out of nowhere, Al-Ahmar bin Hawazin leaped and just cut off his leg. That's how they were. And they would go to war.
Notice the story he just gave. A guy actually challenged people, cut off my leg, and someone did. And he says, you see, this is their extreme intolerance.
Wow, they were horrible people. Like, they actually reacted to somebody who challenged them to do a very specific thing. They did exactly what he told them to do. Wow, terrible, terrible people. I'm just wondering what you think about this. He says that the pre-Islamic Arab polytheists were extremely intolerant people, and intolerant is an understatement, and they did this and that. Anybody who knows about pre-Islamic polytheism and who knows about post-Islamic Muslim Arab society, do you think the pre-Islamic polytheists were more intolerant, or do you think the Muslims were intolerant? In fact, do you think the Muslims today are more intolerant, or the pre-Islamic polytheists are more intolerant?
Hey, you want some examples? There are comments there are comments that are getting blocked that I still see because yeah, my software here is still patches them through to me, even if they're blocked because of words they contain. But over and over and over again, this is being spammed. David, censored your dead son. Listen, the legend, you got to take out the F word if you want to say something about my son.
And on that
No need, AP.
on that note, look, here is pages of the Quran. Look at that. Pages of the authentic Arabic Quran. And whoa, oopsie. Oh no. Look what happened. Look what happened to those beautiful pages. Oh no. What happened? Why
Wow.
did this happen?
Those
Who
poor
caused this?
poor
Oh,
Quran
no.
pages that this guy
Oh no.
these poor Quran pages that this guy wanted you to rip up.
Yeah. Terrible. Very sad.
So we're talking about the intolerance, the intolerance of the pagans, and you brought up an interesting point, because it's weird. You have Muslim apologists constantly. I mean, constantly pointing out that the pagans were so intolerant, and it's like, wait a minute, Muhammad lived for 12 years as a fake prophet in Mecca and walked out with his life. He made it out with his life. And you brought up the point, who's more tolerant, them or, let's say, Muslims of today? AP, you tell me right now. If I went to Mecca right now and started preaching against the religious beliefs of the people of Mecca today, would I last 12 years?
You wouldn't make it alive for a minute, or I don't know. You would probably.
Yeah, I think I'd make it.
Quickly.
I think I'd make it 12 seconds. I do not think I would make it 12 minutes. I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I really do not believe I would make it 12 minutes preaching against.
I don't. Yeah, no. I would give it. I want to be a little bit more tolerant and give it maybe I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minutes. I don't know, something like that. But you would be quickly lynched and killed. Yeah.
Yeah. Now look at what because he's going on this tirade about how intolerant, how violent and intolerant the pagans of
terrible people
Mecca were. Let's go ahead and let's look at this. Quraysh begin to oppose the messenger of God. Look at this. This is the history of Tabari, volume 6. Ibn Humayd from Salama from Ibn to Ibn Asaq. The messenger of God proclaimed God's message openly and declared Islam publicly to his fellow tribesmen. When he did so, they did not withdraw from him or reject him in any way, as far as I have heard, until he spoke of their gods and denounced them. When he did this, they took exception to it and united in opposition and hostility to him, except for those of them whom God had protected from error by means of Islam. Notice, they had no problem whatsoever with him preaching Islam. They had no problem with him preaching Islam. They had a problem with him mocking their gods and goddesses. But wait a minute, that's what Muslims tell me they never ever do. They tell me they never do this. Now look down towards the bottom here. So what did they do? They went to Abu Talib to try and convince him to get Muhammad to stop making fun of their gods and goddesses. So look at the bottom there on the left. So they went to Abu Talib and said, Abu Talib, your nephew has reviled our gods, denounced our religion, derided our traditional values, and told us that our forefathers were misguided. Either curb his attacks on us or give us a free hand to deal with him, for you are just as opposed to him as we are, and we will deal with him for you. Notice this, they did not jump into mob mode and beat him to death in the streets. They start trying to negotiate.
We have heard it so many times, right? We get the news so many times. If today in Pakistan a rumor starts spreading that somebody in the society said something or did something offensive about Muhammad or the Quran, the person is often lynched by a huge mob and brutally killed on camera. And we have quite a few records of this from the last years. In fact, if you want to talk about somebody being a prophet and declaring their own religion, there was a woman who was who started pretending to be a prophet in Pakistan, and she barely, that was, I think, just a while ago, and she barely made it out alive and was in the end arrested by the police and is facing serious charges now. So this happens in today's Muslim societies. But Farid and other Muslims are telling us that the
They were the
pre-Islamic,
intolerant
polytheists,
ones.
they were very, very intolerant. Although they didn't even do anything, they let them live there for a decade.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let's look at one more example here. So this is also from because now we get the worst of the worst thing that ever happened. So this is on the left-hand side, that last paragraph there. We'll skip the names. I said to him, "What was the worst attack you saw by the Quraysh upon the messenger of God when they openly showed their enmity to him? What was the worst? The worst of the worst. This is the worst these super intolerant people ever did." He replied, "I was with them when their nobles assembled one day in the Hijr and discussed the messenger of God. They said, 'We have never seen the like of what we have endured from this man. He has derided our traditional values, abused our forefathers, reviled our religion, caused division among us, and insulted our gods. We have endured a great deal from him,' or words to that effect." Notice, would I survive 12 years if I went to Mecca today and I derided their traditional values, abused their forefathers, reviled their religion, caused division among them, and insulted their God? Would I last?
You wouldn't survive in any Muslim country.
While they were saying this, the messenger of God suddenly appeared and walked up and kissed the black stone like a good pagan. Then he passed by them while performing the circumambulation. And as he did so, they made some slanderous remarks about him. I could see from the messenger of God's face that he had heard them, but he went on. When he passed the second time, they made similar remarks, and I could see from his face he had heard them, but again he went on. Then he passed them the third time. How have they not killed him? How have they not jumped on him? These super intolerant, enraged mob of violent criminals. Now look. Then he passed by them the third time, and they made similar remarks. But this time he stopped and said, "Here, men of Quraysh, by him whose hand Muhammad's soul rests, I have brought you slaughter." He promises to slaughter them. They were gripped by what he had said, and it was as though every man of them had a bird perched on his head. Even those of them who had been urging the severest measures against him previously spoke in a conciliatory way, using the politest expressions they could think of, and said, "Depart in true guidance."
Wow.
This is the worst.
Terrible. The terribly intolerant people. Wow.
What was the worst treatment that you ever saw from these horrible, violent, extremely, insanely violent mob of maniacs? What was the worst? Well, they started complaining about how he was deriding their traditional values and their gods, and then he promised to slaughter them, and they got real nice all of a sudden. That was the worst, man. That shows how intolerant these guys were.
Terrible people. Intolerant is an understatement, guys, brothers and sisters.
Isn't this insane? Like, notice, Saajid's playing these clips from Farid. They don't tell anyone any of this, right? Their viewers, their viewers don't know Tabari. Their viewers don't know what the polytheists of Mecca were actually. They don't know any of this stuff. So they're just hearing, these were the most intolerant people. They would just chop your leg off for asking them to chop your leg off. And people are going, "Oh my goodness, how could Muhammad have survived? You're right. It was a miracle. It had to be a miracle." And the Quran said the word encompass. And as we all know, the word encompass means that Allah is giving a prophecy that he's going to protect him from these violent people.
Absolutely, man.
This is wild stuff.
What else could it possibly be? What else could it? The funny thing is, when you grow up as a Muslim, you actually learn that is what happened. That the pre-Islamic polytheists were very hateful people who were completely intolerant and who persecuted the Muslims and who persecuted the Prophet. And you learn all of these things, and you are basically indoctrinated with that whole idea, while also at the same time learning that that the Meccan phase was, like, quite long, and it doesn't occur to you when you are raised with that indoctrination that those two things combined don't really make much sense.
Mm-hmm.
If they were such monsters, why was he there for so long?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are told this horror story of how the Hijrah happened, how he fled from Mecca and they were after him and they wanted to kill him, and that's how terrible they were. But he lived there for a decade. But I don't know. You don't think about this stuff.
Nope. And so notice this is the lead off argument. The Quran says the word encompass. That's a prophecy that Allah is going to protect Muhammad. And he's going to protect him in what sort of environment? You have to dial up the nonsense. These are the most violent people who've ever lived, and Muhammad's challenging them all. And therefore, it's actually miraculous that he survived. Not that these guys were actually, compared to Muhammad's followers, these guys were extremely tolerant, and he promised to slaughter them, and they were still tolerant. This is amazing stuff, man. All right, let's let him
over the most frivolous of reasons.
Oh, that's
now
good.
Compare this to someone who comes up to them and tells them that I'm a prophet from God and you are following a false religion and your gods are useless. Now the Prophet ﷺ, against all odds, not only survived the many assassination attempts, however, he also successfully spread the religion across the region, and this was only due to the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was
and not due to the fact that they were significantly more tolerant than Muhammad's followers.
Protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until his death and until the message.
And Allah continued to protect him until he swallowed the poison and died like a dog.
Was delivered. This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you and have approved for you Islam as a religion.
So one thing Farid does in this episode is he takes...
Oh, now we've got Saajid's powerful...
He blows our mind with amazing things that we have never thought about.
And that amazing scientifically verified proof that has been just recently confirmed in a laboratory with the world's greatest physicists. They confirmed that the pagans were as violent as Farid says, and they confirmed that the word encompass is a prophecy of the future. That's amazing, man.
Hey, comment section, Mary says he also survived suicide.
Yeah, also repeat. Yeah, but make that your argument, right? Muhammad repeatedly... We should make some arguments, right? We should make some arguments like that. Like, Muhammad repeatedly tried to kill himself, and he did not succeed because Allah was protecting him, right? So it's a miracle. It's a miracle that a man could try to off himself so many times and not succeed. This means he's a true prophet.
That sounds like a plot of a good dark comedy movie.
A powerful dawah. All right, let's see what Saajid has to say about this powerful argument.
Back to that time period. Since we live 1400 years later, we already know what happens. We already know that the Prophet ﷺ, he survives, he is successful, Islam spreads. We already know all of this. But imagine during that time when the Prophet ﷺ first
you know
came
what's
out,
funny?
do we really understand
Let's see.
what that entailed? Who he was coming out against, who he was preaching to.
Right.
Amateur hour.
Hey, don't be talking trash about me on my own show, man.
If I asked them what would happen to me in Pakistan today, I wouldn't make it alive for minutes. If I spoke out against their religion today, I don't know. Maybe they would perceive that as not as a challenge to their whole idea that the Quraysh were actually quite tolerant compared to the Muslims. Maybe they would think that this is actually proving their point, because I obviously wouldn't make it alive if I talked trash about Islam in Pakistan. I would be killed. So Allah would not protect me. But the Prophet Muhammad, he talked trash as much as he wanted, and nobody did anything to him. He survived. So this is a miracle. This is another miracle. If I survive it, if I'm killed, then this actually again shows that it was a miracle, and Allah protected Muhammad. You can always make it work. Wow.
You know, it's funny. You got like Andrew Tate and stuff. And like he says, he respects the guys who will kill over their religion. So and Tate would be like, well, maybe I need to look into this Arab paganism because these guys seem to really know the truth. Look how violent they were, according to Saajid. So if
Muslims are too tolerant.
Yeah, if Saajid and Farid were talking to Andrew Tate, they'd have to be like, no, these guys were weak. They were super tolerant. That's why they let him. That's why they let him preach there for over a decade, because they're too tolerant. He'd be like, oh, they were tolerant. Oh, then I don't like it anymore. I'll just change it based on whoever's listening.
Imagine the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said so many terrible things about their gods, but they didn't even harm him. They were so weak. But then Islam came along and started slaughtering. And he's like,
the power of Islam.
The controversy that was coming as a result of what he was saying. And for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect him all the way up until the end, it's just something that's so fascinating if you really think about it. You know, imagine you were around during those formative years when he first, alayhi salatu wasalam, received divine revelation, and then he came out and he was saying things that were going against his people. And we see how harsh some of them were, to go to war, to kill, to fight, yet Allah protected him throughout the entirety of his message until the Quran was completely revealed. The religion was sent down. It was taught. Islam grew. It spread. The hadith, the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, they were preserved and passed down. You know, it's something that we really take for granted. But if you think about,
it's funny seeing him smile and happy.
Of the Muslims,
this is what makes him happy,
and what they were up against.
Takes a lot of pleasure.
You think about how Allah protected them. And you look at the entirety of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, step by step. It's just such a proof for prophet.
It's a proof.
Again, this is just one of so many different things, and
I want to strengthen
one another. So let's go to the next episode.
All right, what's up? I'm about to wreck this argument beyond anything that we've said so far. But go.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's what you just said reminded me of Dr. Dre. What was I going to say, man? No, I'm distracted by the next episode.
You forgot about Dre.
Saajid Lipham. So you see how he was just like genuinely happy and smiling about this whole thing, right? Because he that makes him actually happy. He likes that. He loves it. This is the thing about Saajid Lipham. Like I don't think that
Dawa makes me sad because it's so stupid nowadays. And we've got all these.
I don't think this guy is like a brutally dishonest liar like most of those Dawa people, and he's also not incredibly stupid. He's just, I think he genuinely believes in what he believes in. He genuinely is fully convinced of all the stuff that he presents. He doesn't deliberately try to lie, but he is just so blatantly lying to himself and being so happy about it because it looks like that's just what he needs and what he wants in life. And that's why, like, I feel disgust when I talk about people like Ali Dawa or Muhammad Hijab or Daniel Kikichu. I don't feel the same thing about Saajid Lipham. I think this guy is an honest guy. I could see myself and my own past in this guy when he talks, but the stuff that he presents is just totally deluded and wrong and dumb.
And the problem here is we could lay everything out that we just said. We could lay out and say there's nothing in the word encompass that is a prophecy that Muhammad is going to miraculously survive. The pagans were not nearly as intolerant as you guys are portraying them. We know why Muhammad made it. They were significantly more tolerant than Muhammad and his followers would become, and he had the protection of Abu Talib. So he had a protector, and eventually Abu Talib dies, and Muhammad leaves and goes to a different city. Right. So it's not some great miraculous thing. No, I mean, notice you could pick anyone who survived a long time. You could say anyone who survived a long time. In a hostile environment, you could use this exact same argument. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Are you ready?
Yes.
Look at here. This is chapter 1 of Paul's letter to the Philippians. Let's go ahead and read this paragraph. So chapter 1, Philippians 1. Yes, and I will rejoice, for I know that through your prayers, so this is Paul, who's been locked up by the Romans. Yes, and I will rejoice, for I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance, as it is my eager expectation and hope that I will not be at all ashamed, but that with full courage now, as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me, yet which I shall choose, I cannot tell. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary on your account. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all for your progress and joy in the faith, so that in me you may have ample cause to glory in Christ Jesus because of my coming to you again. Now, notice he says, through your prayers, in verse 19, through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance. And convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with you all. AP, that is far, far, far clearer prediction than the word encompass, right? He's saying, through the power of Jesus and your prayers, this will turn out for my deliverance. I'm going to finish the work that I started. And Paul did finish the work that he started. Eventually, later on, he would write another letter from a future imprisonment where he said, I've finished my course, and he knows he's going to die. So here's the thing. Notice what they said. The Quran contained, because of the word encompass in the Quran, this is a prophecy that Muhammad's going to survive in this hostile environment until he finishes his work. And he did survive until he finished his work. That's proof. That's what Saajid just called it. Okay. Paul gives a much clearer prediction, prophecy of his survival until he finishes his work. And he was in a significantly more hostile environment. We already saw the worst that happened to Muhammad. They talked about him and then tried to reconcile with him. Oh my goodness, so harsh. Paul was given the 39 lashes 5 different times. He was beaten by the Romans 3 different times. He was stoned one time. They tried stoning him to death, and they thought they'd won, and then he survived that. He was shipwrecked multiple times. He said he spent all day and night in the ocean, floating in the ocean after shipwreck. So anyway, Paul went through way, way, way more. And think about this. According to Muslims, the original followers of Jesus were devout Muslims, right? So the original followers of Jesus were devout Muslims, according to Islam. Muslims today view Paul as a horrible deceiver. Now think about this. Who is on Paul's side right now? Who is on Paul's side? The Romans are mad at him because he's proclaiming a Lord who is over Caesar. The Jews don't like him because now he's preaching the risen Jesus as Lord. And if Muslims are correct, Jesus' followers were devout Muslims, they wouldn't have liked Paul for promoting shirk, that Jesus is Lord, saying that God has a son. Who would have been on Paul's side? No one. Every single group that was around Paul would have hated him, and some of them would have tried to kill him. And Paul, in the midst of all this, even in the midst of an imprisonment, says, actually, this is going to turn out for my deliverance so I can finish my work. Now, ask Saajid and Farid how much evidence they think that is that God was protecting the Apostle Paul. Keep in mind, Muhammad at least had Abu Talib, and he had other people. He was rich because he married a rich old lady. Muhammad had a lot going for him in terms of protection. Paul, according to Islam, had nothing. I mean, he had no one supporting him. Now, we know in actuality, the Christian followers of Jesus supported the Apostle Paul and his work. But according to Muslims, no, those devout followers of Jesus were Muslims. So he had no one on his side. A bunch of people want him dead. They even lock him up. And he says, this is going to turn out for my deliverance until I finish my work. How much evidence is that, Saajid and Farid? They will tell you it's no evidence at all. It's not even a slight bit of evidence. Okay, well, the Quran says encompass, and Muhammad, who has a powerful protector, a human protector, and then he runs when that human protector dies. How much evidence is that Muhammad was protected by Allah? It's complete proof, indisputable proof. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's the problem. They're using the exact same methodology they use everywhere else. Anything that you can stretch into some argument is clear proof. What if you have a much better argument using the exact same formula for some other religion? It's no proof at all. It's nothing.
I just realized that I was muted, but I was trying to talk. Amateur stuff. But well, the clear difference here that you are making is that the proof which you are presenting for Paul here is not acceptable because it is not scientific, and the proof for that, for the fact that it is not scientific, is that what is the religion that you are arguing for?
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, right? What is the religion that Saajid and Farid are arguing for? Islam. Islam is scientific. Therefore, your proof is invalid and their proof is valid. That's how easy it is. You don't even know these things, David.
Powerful, powerful, powerful stuff.
You're completely ignorant. You're Islamophobe. You're denying science here.
Isn't this, I mean, that's what I find fascinating in all of this, right? Like, I mean, Saajid's face is literally lighting up when he thinks about Muhammad surviving.
This is so beautiful.
And he thinks that this is this amazing proof. Okay, I can use the exact same argument, but in a much more powerful form for the Apostle Paul. There was significantly more hostility towards him. He had significantly less human protection than Muhammad did. What should we make of that? What should we make of that? And the answer there will be nothing. You should do absolutely nothing with that. This is amazing stuff, man. But if you make the same argument in a much weaker fashion about Muhammad, it's proof, scientific proof. This is amazing.
It is scientific. It is scientific proof.
All right.
You just don't want to accept the truth.
All right. So that is, gosh, it took us an hour to get through 1 point.
But yeah, I think that's just enough, man.
Yeah, he only makes 3 points. He only makes 3 points, and the final
What are
one.
the others?
The final one is the Romans one, which we've been through 1,000 times.
No.
All right, let's go through the second argument, which is
why do people think the stupidest evidence out there is proof that Islam is true? It is just so dumb.
It is. It's like, matter of fact, let's try and rapid fire this stuff. So we're not.
Wow, man.
Here we go.
When the Prophet, peace be upon him, was in Mecca, surrounded by his foes, these verses were revealed. Say, if mankind and the jinn gathered in order to produce the like of this Quran, they could not produce the like of it, even if they were to each other assistants. Now keep in mind that the enemies of the Prophet, peace be upon him, could have simply produced something like it, and just by doing that, that would have been it.
Now notice, this is so stupid. Hey, Muhammad issued the challenge. Produce. And you had different versions of it in the Quran. The one in Surah 2 says, produce a chapter like it. So that's the challenge. If you think that this isn't from God, then produce a chapter like this. And Farid is saying, it would have been so simple. Why didn't they just produce something like it? Okay, Farid, and he would have been done. He would have been laughed out of Mecca. It's so clear, right? Farid, who's the judge of this contest? Muslims, right? The same people who are dazzled and amazed by the mole on Muhammad's back and thinks that's the proof that he's a prophet. They're the ones who are going to judge this contest, right? And notice who we have examining the evidence for us right now: Farid and Saajid. These are the same guys who would say the Quran has been perfectly preserved right down to the letter from the time of Muhammad. No differences anywhere. Those are the same guys who would say that, right? Like extreme delusional level thinking. These are the same guys who will say, wow, Muhammad didn't get instantly killed. It's a miracle. And if you use that same argument about anyone else in history, they would instantly reject it. These are the unbiased people, right, who are examining this evidence. So
the unbiased ones.
The reason I'm bringing this up is that this actually happened. What Farid is saying could have happened, and I'm sure Farid knows this. He knows Ibn Ishaq. There was a guy named Al-Nadir who, when Muhammad would get up to deliver his revelations of the Quran, Al-Nadir would stand up after him and also recite verses and then challenge people and say, in what way is Muhammad's story better than mine? He's doing what Farid said. All you had to do was that, and then Muhammad would have been exposed and refuted. Well, Al-Nadir did that. And notice he actually challenged them. Okay, if you Muslims still think that Muhammad's story is better than mine, tell me how. Explain to me how his story is better than mine. And they couldn't do it. And eventually they captured him and killed him. That's how they respond. That's how they actually responded to the challenge.
There's also what was that? In my conversation with Dr. Shahid Nasser, he was responding to this, and he told about an author in Arab history who is actually quite known, who did write a book that is pretty much a parody of the Quran, and that is considered in many ways better than the Quran. Mm-hmm. And he specifically did write it to challenge, to take the Quran's challenge. But of course, the book is still in existence in Arabic. It is still found.
So,
but
talk about the True Furqan.
I don't know. No, I'm talking about a very old book, which is from.
No, there's a book called the True Furqan, which is like a Christian version of the Quran that it's written and sounds just like the Quran.
No. I think I'm talking about a different one. But anyway, so no, the issue is, so people have taken the challenge, right? People have done it. People can still do it today. We can produce chapters. We can produce verses. Nowadays, AI has developed. AI can take the challenge and actually write verses that are better than the Quran, or that are like the Quran, in terms of knowledge, better than the Quran, in terms of style, similar to the Quran, or better. I mean, anybody can actually write a book that is better. I mean, let me ask you this: how many lists have you seen that list the Quran as the best literary work out there? I haven't seen a single one.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. And
it's terrible.
And I've mentioned before, I do not say this because I disagree with the Quran. I disagree with a ton of stuff in Plato's Republic. Plato's Republic is a phenomenal, brilliant, insanely genius book. I disagree with a ton of stuff in Hume's dialogues concerning natural religion. Hume's dialogues concerning natural religion is a brilliant, masterfully written book. The Quran, I agree with Anthony Flew on the Quran. Anthony Flew is asked to compare the Bible and the Quran. So Anthony Flew is one of the prominent atheists of the 20th century. Back when atheists were like these gentlemanly guys and not like these rabid, angry, screaming about God all time people like AP. But Anthony Flew, a little before he died. So he'd spent the entire 20th century studying religions and so on. And he was asked if he eventually became a kind of deist rather than an atheist. And he was asked if he thought he would ever convert to a specific religion like Christianity or Islam. And he said no, he doesn't believe in them. But he was asked to compare Jesus and Muhammad. He was asked to compare Jesus and Paul. He was asked to compare the Bible and the Quran. And he said, Paul was a brilliant scholar. Muhammad most certainly was not. He said, Jesus is an amazingly charismatic figure. Everyone wants to emulate Jesus. And he said, Muhammad most certainly was not. And he compared the Bible and the Quran. He said, even as an atheist, I have to recognize the Bible as a masterful work of literature. He goes, to read the Quran is to do penance. Guys, know penance is where you punish yourself for your sins. So he's saying, if you want to read the Quran, you're basically punishing yourself. And that's what it's like.
I did a thing a few years ago. We were on vacation for the summer, and I decided to read the Quran once again from the very beginning to the very end without interruption, without long interruptions. And I just realized how incredibly hard it is to do that after you quit believing in it. It is already hard when you do believe in it to read it, because it's just an incredibly, insanely boring, disorganized, horrible book that constantly jumps from topic to topic, throws in random things that don't belong there, constantly ends things with "and Allah is merciful" where it doesn't even belong, repeats the same story 1,000 times, takes stories from biblical tradition and takes them in a very short, incomplete, and often wrong way. It is just a horrible book to sit down and read. But I just felt how hard it was to actually sit down and read through that book. It is torture. It is painful.
It's really,
horrible.
really bad.
And here is the thing. I mean, as David just said, if you made a competition today and said, "Hey guys, here is a competition. Everybody who makes a cake that is better than this cake will win a huge prize," and everybody then puts their best effort into it and makes a cake. I can come there and I can say in the end, no, none of those cakes is better than this cake. This cake is the best. Because why? I haven't even given you any of the criteria, any of the parameters. I am the one who is in charge of deciding which cake is the best. And I have already made up my own mind. I have already decided that this cake is the best one. No matter what you do, no matter what reasoning, no matter what justification, what arguments you give, I will dismiss every single thing. I will always find a new reason to explain to you why my cake is the best. Even if my cake tastes like dirt, I will say that is actually a feature of it. That is, that's what makes it special. That's what Muslims do about the Quran. So this is a nonsensical challenge. It doesn't make any sense, let alone be proof or anything for Islam.
Yeah, if you really wanted to write something like the Quran, just take some other book and stick it in a blender and let it get all chopped up, and then just lay it out like that. Yeah, horribly disorganized. Allah can never say what he actually means. I mean, every time we bring up a Quran verse, what Allah really means here is, I mean, think what they have to do. Oh, look, what other book can use the word encompass, and yet it's a prophecy of the future to come, right? It's like,
yeah.
This is really, really, really bad. All right,
it has such contents that Muslims that it even says about itself that there are verses which are ambiguous, and Muslims interpret that nowadays as that there is a lot in the Quran which, as much as you try to unpack it, you will not understand, because you are not meant to understand them, because they are on a divine level, like they are only meant for Allah to understand, which is stupid. If the book is for you to read, why is that the case? And can there really be something that is completely incomprehensible in such a primitive book, when people can sit down and analyze and understand the most complicated philosophy books that we have in our time? It is a dumb book, and the only way to actually be impressed with that book is to believe that Islam is true, which is already a very dumb thing.
Hey, Farid Farid's over in the chat, man. Hey, Farid, if you want to jump in, hey, just Farid and Saajid, you guys ever want to jump in? You can jump in.
Is it actually the real Farid? I don't.
Yeah, I clicked on his channel. No, I did. I clicked on it.
Really?
Yeah, went to his channel. So that is the real Farid. Yeah, Farid. Anytime you want to. Matter of fact, Farid, if you want to join us, as long as there's no insulting or anything like that, we're pretty nice guys. So you can if you are going to sleep now or whatever, we can set something up, and you can explain all of this for us. But yeah, let's let
Definitely.
Farid finish his point here in this
no
video.
more
And
claiming
then I'll
to be a
destroy it again.
prophet. So how is it that he could make a claim like that? How is that even possible? Isn't there someone out there, an Arab out there, a poet that he's not aware of, someone with like great ability that could produce something like the Quran? Couldn't all the poets come together and produce something on the same level of eloquence as the Quran? The fact that he had the confidence to make such a challenge proves
Notice, watch this again. Farid always seems to take someone's confidence as proof.
that could produce something like the Quran. Couldn't all the poets come together and produce something on the same level of eloquence as the Quran? The fact that he had the confidence to make such a challenge proves that this was knowledge of the unseen. That it's
The fact that he had so much confidence proves that he had knowledge of the unseen. Did you catch that? Farid, this is terrible. I know you're listening.
something that could not have been
Please,
done.
man.
And this challenge is something that one would put forward only if they were certain
Only
that
if
no
they were
one
certain.
would step up and
Overconfidence is the proof that you are acting on behalf of God.
Yeah, only someone who had this supreme confidence, or who knows his followers are a bunch of mindless dopes who will believe anything he says, and someone who knows that this is impossible. This is a situation where it's impossible to prove. Right? Guys, if I say this is the most delicious iced coffee in the world, prove me wrong. Prove me. I made this iced coffee. This is the most delicious cup of iced coffee ever. Prove me wrong, Farid. I must be getting this from God, right? Otherwise, why would I be saying this? Oh, by the way, I'm the one who's going to judge the contest, Farid. I judge the contest. So you bring me any iced coffee you think can even match mine. I will taste mine, then I will taste your iced coffee, and I will declare mine the victor. There's no way to prove me wrong if I'm the judge, Farid. There is zero way to prove me wrong if I'm just going to say mine's better no matter what. None. Muhammad knows that. And he knows his followers, even back then, were people like you who can look at something, and if you were looking anywhere else in the world, you would say that's no evidence. Suddenly, if it has something to do with your religion, this is the proof. He knows, because he's the one who conditioned you guys to be like that. So you have a guy who conditions people. We have a guy who conditions people to be like this, and then you take it as miraculous. This is amazing. His confidence level. Wow.
How can you talk like this about Farid right now when he's in the chat? Shouldn't we be like terrified that he's now here facing us and could possibly intellectually humiliate us? This is pretty dangerous stuff, man.
Hey, let me I want to look at a couple Quran verses, but let me see if he finishes this.
Eloquence of
I
Quran.
want to add something very quickly. I looked it up, but Shad Nasser shared this information before. But the book is called Al Fusul wal Ghayat, which is written by a philosopher in the 10th century and 11th century, Al-Mari, and that book is kind of an ironic, satirical commentary on society and all of that, and it's meant to imitate the style of the Quran, or be kind of a contester to the Quran. But obviously it wasn't recognized as better than the Quran or as good as the Quran, because Muslims are in charge of judging what is better. So
yeah, I do find it interesting that there's all this. They have confidence based on another person's level of confidence. Like we have confidence. If this guy's super confident, then that's how I know I can have confidence in it.
Confidence is due to having knowledge of the unseen.
This is something we see over and over and over again.
Yeah, we do see this stupid argument over and over and over again. All right, hey, check out people's actual reaction to the Quran. Not according to me, according to the Quran. Mm-hmm. The Quran contains responses to people who were definitely not impressed with the Quran. So here's Surah 6, verse 25. Can pick a translation here. Let's go with the Yusuf Ali. Of them are some who pretend to listen to you, but we have thrown veils on their hearts, so they understand it not, and deafness is in their ears. Notice, if you were to say the Quran isn't all that good, Allah's response is, because I hardened their hearts, so they can't understand it, and they can't understand how good it is. So notice, if you actually came to Muhammad and said, Muhammad, I've met your challenge. Here, this is better than the Quran. And we all agree it's better than the Quran. I just wrote something better than the Quran. Allah's response is, oh, yeah, I hardened their hearts. I made them think that. Oh, okay, well, I guess that would explain it, wouldn't it? So they understand it not, and deafness in their ears. If they saw every one of the signs, not they will believe in them, insomuch that when they come to thee, they but dispute with thee. The unbelievers say, these are nothing but tales of the ancients. It's that last part right there that gives you the reaction of the unbelievers. Mm-hmm. They say, what is this? We've heard this before, Muhammad. You're just copying stories from everyone else. All right, let's go through a couple of examples of this. These are all just translations of the same verse. We'll stick with Yusuf Ali, 831. When our signs are rehearsed to them, they say, we have heard this before. If we wished, we could say words like these. These are nothing but tales of the ancients. That's their reaction. It wasn't, oh my goodness, this is so powerful. This is so powerful. Look at his confidence he has. Look at his confidence. They're like, what are you talking about? You sound like a dope, Muhammad. That's their actual reaction. 961. Among them are men who molest the Prophet. See, the Prophet was a
prophet molesters, yeah, too.
These prophet molesters. They molested the Prophet, then he molested Aisha. He continued the cycle. That's why you have to stop the cycle, ladies and gentlemen.
Stop.
What's wrong with you?
Oh boy, it's not
Among
good.
them are men who molest the Prophet and say he is all ear. Oh, I like that. Look at it. They have to put all in parentheses. Look at let's go with the Arbery down here. And some of them hurt the Prophet, saying he's an ear. I love that. I love that. That's what it actually says. He's an ear.
Yeah,
he's an ear. They called him an
and
ear.
What does that mean?
It called him an ear because he's just repeating everything he hears from other people. Say, and so this is Allah's response. Say, an ear of good for you. He believes in God and believes the believers. And he is a mercy to the believers among you. Those who hurt God's messenger, for them awaits a painful chastisement. So they're Muhammad's coming up. Look at my powerful verses. They're so powerful. Look at my confidence level. I have supreme confidence. They're going, you keep repeating everything you heard from everyone else. Yusuf Ali, 16:103. We know indeed that they say it is a man that teaches him. The tongue of him they wickedly point to is notably foreign, while this is Arabic, pure and clear. We've been through that a bunch of times. Allah's response to the claim that Muhammad is plagiarizing other sources is, well, there's no way to plagiarize these other, poems and stories because, they're in a different language and translation is impossible. Translation's not a thing that can ever be done. Let's see. So this is 25.
There's even you know about this, David. There's even a chapter, a very short one in the Quran, which is one of the final chapters in the Quran right now, not chronologically, where Muhammad was still in Mecca. That is Surah Masad, or also called Lahab or whatever. It's a chapter about Abu Lahab, who is considered one of the biggest enemies and relatives also of Muhammad, who when Muhammad gathers the people around him and declares his message to them, he reacts with, "Is this what you call this here for? May you perish." That's what it says according to the tafsirs and the hadiths. So that was his reaction to Muhammad's brilliant stuff. And then the Quran responds to that, supposedly Allah responds to that in chapter 111 by condemning that guy and making a little chapter just about that guy, which goes, may he perish and his wife as well. So Allah gets angry in response to that guy's annoyance with Muhammad's message.
How dare you!
And condemns him to hell. And that's basically what happens. So when people are annoyed by Muhammad's delivery and by Muhammad's message, and they react with such things to him, the Muslims, Allah becomes angry at them, Muhammad becomes angry at them, and those people become enemies. There is always an excuse here.
Mm-hmm. 25:4, we'll go with Shakir. And those who disbelieve say, this is nothing but a lie which he has forged. This is their reaction hearing Muhammad's new revelation. This is nothing but a lie which he has forged, and other people have helped him at it. So that's their reaction. Come on, Muhammad. We know where you're getting this stuff from. You keep leaving, hanging out with all these other guys, and then coming out with your amazing revelations, which do not impress us at all. And the next verse says, and they say, stories of the ancients, he has got them written. So these are read out to him morning and evening, saying, hey, people are quoting stories to you morning and evening, and you're coming out and saying, this is my new revelation. We know what's going on here. Are these guys impressed at all by the Quran? Even slightly? No, they're laughing at it. They're mocking it. They think that this is a giant joke, which is pretty much what everyone who reads the Quran thinks.
That's because Allah hardened their hearts. Yeah. I wonder if Farid is still here and when he will start commenting, get on your knees, a golden shower. And
golden showers. You see. Okay, so now we're back to Saajid's summary and thoughts on this powerful argument.
Throughout the life of the Prophet ﷺ, and Farid brings many examples throughout this series of prophecies fulfilled, of the confidence of the Messenger of Allah.
Notice they keep saying it. He's so confident.
Even though during these times he was weak. He was just starting out.
Look, his face is lighting up again.
It seemed like the entire world was against him. He had this confidence, and these prophecies came true. Now the Quran.
Hey, you know who else had confidence? Joseph Smith. He must be a prophet. Oh, Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, who started the Ahmadis, he had confidence too. How could he have so much confidence if he wasn't the true second coming of Jesus as he claimed to be? How? He's so confident. My goodness, man.
I am confident that I'm making the best. I have the best channel on YouTube criticizing Islam from an ex-Muslim perspective, and nobody else can do something like this. If they can do something like this, then let them come out here and do it. I'm pretty confident that I am doing the best, and nobody will ever be able to do it better. So this clearly means, due to my confidence here, which is unbelievable, this clearly means that I'm acting on behalf of God. So,
Farid and Saajid, I have complete confidence that this is the stupidest argument I've ever heard. I guess that makes it the stupidest argument I've ever heard, because I have this confidence. This is brilliant.
Nobody can make a more stupid argument.
A miracle.
I challenge the entire world to come up with a stupider argument and prove me wrong.
In and of itself, the Quran, this book, and if we think about the tradition of the prophets, we find that Allah would send them with signs that their people could recognize. Their people could see that, this must be a prophet of God. So for example, Musa alayhi salam, when he had the competition against the magicians, if he wasn't truly a prophet, then defeat him in this competition. Of course, Musa alayhi salam won. We find Isa alayhi salam, his people being into medicine and that being something that they excelled in. Isa alayhi salam was able to do things that they, of course, couldn't do, that they observed to be miraculous, like giving sight to the blind,
without referencing,
or by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, giving life to the dead. Now for the Arabs, for the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, poetry was what they excelled in. It was their specialty. So the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam came with the Quran, and the people were able to recognize this as a divine miracle. This is something that people could not imitate. It's not something that they could not bring forth anything like
come
it.
Up with
just like
something
they couldn't defeat Musa alayhi salam, just like they couldn't defeat Isa alayhi salam in what they brought forth. The same goes for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Quran.
This is an amazing point, actually. Look, I mean, you see here how Allah cares about Muhammad. Like you have Moses, who is tested with magic, with literally turning one thing into something else, with some really, really big, impressive stuff bigly. Then you have Jesus, who actually heals people and gives life and brings people back to life. And then you have Muhammad
Look at
with
my
poetry.
book.
Poetry.
Look at the book I'm reciting. I'm reciting verses. You can never top that. Isn't this like
That's because Allah cared so much about Muhammad that he didn't want to tire him so much, so he gave him an easy job, poetry, where Muhammad just had to go like, can you do that? Can you do something better? Can you do something better than this? No.
Yeah, and I'm going to judge the contest. I'm going to be the judge.
Oh boy.
Let's look at an example of an entire chapter of the Quran. Since the Quran in Surah 2 challenges unbelievers to recite, to come up with something as good as a chapter of the Quran. Check out an entire chapter of the Quran. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, say, O ye that reject faith, I worship not that which ye worship, nor will ye worship that which I worship, and I will not worship that which ye have been wont to worship, nor will ye worship that which I worship. To you be your way, and to me mine. That, according to Saajid and Farid, is so absolutely amazing that no one can write anything like that. And of course, we get the response now. But it only works in Arabic. It has to be, guys. Here's the problem. Well, just think about the English. What is that in English? What is that? It's a series of words arranged one after another in order to convey some kind of meaning. That's what happens when you put words, into a sentence or meter or something like that, right? So that's what it is in English. What is it in Arabic? It's a series of words arranged to convey some sort of meaning. If you want us to take this argument seriously, you can't just say, Muhammad was so confident. That is insane and idiotic to say, oh, this guy historically was confident, and therefore we know he must be right. He must have access to the unseen. And I mean, my goodness, any narcissist in history meets that requirement. No wonder you guys keep ending up with no wonder you guys keep ending up with like Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah and Sheikh Uthman and Andrew Tate as your heroes. They're big narcissists. They have lots of confidence built into them. So what is that chapter of the Quran in Arabic? It's just some Arabic words. If you want us to take that seriously, you have to present some kind of evidence that a human being could not put words in that order. And the problem there is human beings can put words in any order we want. And if we were to put them in some kind of order, it would probably be significantly better than the nonsense we just read. So this is a terrible, terrible, awful, horrible argument. And I have to point out, this is the main argument that Muhammad uses in the Quran. This is his main evidence. I mean, apart from telling the people of the book that he's confirming their scriptures and therefore they need to confirm him in return, which Muslims today don't use. Notice Muslims today do not say what the Quran says repeatedly, where Allah says, Muhammad is affirming what you have in your scriptures, therefore you should affirm him as a prophet. Muslims today tell us, no, Muhammad didn't believe in the Bible. He believed it was corrupted, and therefore that entire argument falls to pieces. But those are the main arguments. Muhammad is affirming the Jewish and Christian scriptures, therefore he must be a true prophet. Muslims don't use that one because they realize that the Bible would destroy the Quran if you took that argument seriously. And then it's this. No one can produce something like it. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
And guys, even if we did not know how bad the Quran was, even if we had no idea that it's this jumbled mess of nonsense and Allah can't even get his thoughts right, and that's why he needs someone like Farid to come along and say, what he means by encompass is this. Even if we did not know that, if I just said, here's a book, I've got a book right here, and it's so incredibly written that none of you can write something like it. If you heard that challenge, would you think that, okay, if I can't write something like it, it must be from God?
Yes.
Guys, does that follow? I can't write something like it, therefore it's from God. Does that follow? Does that make sense? If I can't write something like it, I have to admit it's from God. That is the stupidest, most insanely idiotic thing anyone has ever claimed. You can't write something like it, therefore it's from God. Can I write a play like Romeo and Juliet? No, I can't. Therefore, I have to say it's from God.
How about we try to challenge that Quran chapter alone here? How about we try to do that? Let's try to do something better.
You're going to do it?
I don't know. I can try. I can try. David.
AP. AP. Yes. You don't worship Jesus, but I do worship Jesus. You refuse to worship Jesus, but I do worship Jesus. To you be your atheistic way, and to me be my way. Oh, shocking. It's just like the Quran.
Wow.
But notice, even if we didn't know, even if we opened up the Quran and we were like, wow, this is the most brilliant book ever written, what would that have to do with whether it's from God?
David, you just do not understand the part. You think that Quran verse sounds like a fart because Allah hardened your heart, and therefore you will depart as a disbeliever and something like that. See, I couldn't do it, man. This clearly shows that the Quran is from Allah.
It's got to be.
It has to. I tried my best. You can see it. I tried my best, but it doesn't work. And what does it show? What does this tell us? What does this tell you? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I'm doing the Shahada right now. I testify there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. I'm convinced right now, fully, entirely. I tried my best, and it just doesn't work. And this, Farid convinced us. Saajid convinced us that this means Islam is the truth. This is proof. It is scientifically verifiable. Scientifically verifiable. What else do you want?
Yeah. So again, everyone, especially any Muslims who are watching, I want you to get the point here. There are two problems here. One, the Quran is one of the worst things we've ever read. It's absolute horrifyingly bad, painful to read. So to say that is so wonderful, it can only come from God, is an insult to God. But two, even if we're the greatest, most amazing thing ever written, does the fact that you can't write something like it mean that it's from God?
Yeah.
Again, if you can't write a play like Shakespeare, does that mean Shakespeare's plays are from God? No. If you can't write a symphony like Mozart, would that mean that Mozart's symphonies are the inspired music of God? No. If you can't write a rap like Eminem, would that mean that Eminem's lyrics are from God? Go down the list. Yeah. Think of anyone. If you can't play football like Tom Brady, does that mean he's the inspired quarterback of God? No. You not being able to do something does not mean that that it's from God. It doesn't mean that.
You mean college football or whatever it's called? That weird thing where they kick some weird non-ball around?
No, I mean soccer.
Travesty.
I'm talking about soccer. So guys, if someone came out to me today right now and said, "Hey, if you can't do something like this, then it's from God," then you have to agree it's from God. That just sounds so insanely stupid.
Convincing.
And we've seen, according to the Quran itself, they thought the non-Muslims thought that it was a sad joke. They thought that it was a horrible, ridiculous argument, and that Muhammad's just copying stuff. He's just copying stuff from the people around him. You just saw Saajid. We just saw Saajid say, he's trying to tie the miracles into what was popular at the time. So during the time of Moses, it was magic. So he showed he had greater magic. During Jesus' time, he's claiming that that medicine was popular. Medicine was super popular during the time of Jesus. So Jesus performed
Everyone
these.
loved medicine back then.
Yeah. So Jesus performed these miraculous healings. And then in the time of Muhammad, poetry, having the best poetry is what they regarded as miraculous. We know that's false according to the Quran, because over and over and over again, the unbelievers challenge Muhammad. Why can't you perform a sign? So are they taking his poetry as a sign? No. They're saying, why can't you give a real sign? Why can't you do something that's actually miraculous? So the unbelievers did not think that great poetry was the miracle, and didn't think that that was even a kind of miracle. My goodness, man, this is so dumb. This is, and again, this is the most powerful stuff. They let out with the best stuff. Let's just make sure this point is finished, and then we'll wrap up. We don't need the third point is the Romans thing, which we don't need to. We've been through a million times. We've shown how stupid that is. Let me just see if there's anything left of this point.
Have to gain from bringing Islam to the world. Now, some of the reasons people usually give include wealth or women.
What did he say? Okay, now he's talking about.
Oh boy.
Let's see what he says
in the Quran.
What did Rasulullah ﷺ have to gain from bringing Islam to the world? Now, some of
what did he have to gain by bringing Islam? And then he gives, he's claiming that what we'll say is he wanted to get rich. That is not what I view as what's driving Muhammad. What Muhammad sought to gain, whether it was intentional or not, he wanted control. He was obsessed with controlling everything around him. He wanted complete control of everything around him. Women, his followers, unbelievers, wanted complete dominance over them. That's what he wanted. So let's see where Farid goes.
Also, you could concede that maybe it is possible that Muhammad didn't have such worldly ambitions, and that Muhammad was indeed convinced that he himself is a prophet, and that he doesn't actually want anything except get people to the truth, which still doesn't mean anything, because that could simply mean that Muhammad was deluded, that he was crazy, that he was mentally unstable, for which we have a lot of evidence as well.
Let's see.
Reasons people usually give include wealth or women. We can quickly scratch off wealth because simply by reading some of his seerah, we come to the conclusion that he lived a very ascetic lifestyle. He only ate the simplest of foods and never lived like a king, didn't dress like a king or anything like that.
The Buddha.
Yeah, this guy had nine houses for 9 different wives, but he was super poor.
When I think of aesthetic life, I think of learning about Eastern. I think of the Buddha, whom I have here just for fun, who allegedly, as the story goes, was in a royal family, was a prince, had a family, kids and everything, and he left everything behind, took everything off, and went into the wilderness and lived off nothing. Like, that is an ascetic life. And
wait, having 9 houses isn't. You don't think, when you think of someone like that, you don't think of someone with 9 houses and 9 wives?
No, I mean, if people told me, if I learned the Buddha was like, he gave up everything, all attachments, he had a very ascetic life, he had 9 houses, and he would go to all of his wives in one night sometimes, I would think, what in the world are you talking about?
Yeah,
how does that make sense?
Let's make another argument for Farid here. Here's an argument for Farid. Muhammad was so poor that he didn't even have a separate bed for his sex slave, Mary the Copt, and he had to take her to the bed of his wife Hafsa, for which he got into trouble. So you can see that Muhammad is so poor, he's getting into trouble with his wives by not providing separate beds to bang his sex slave.
Who ruled over the Arabian Peninsula. Aisha narrates, we, the family of Muhammad ﷺ, used to spend the whole month in which we did not need to kindle the fire as we had nothing to cook. We had only dates and water to fill our bellies. In regards to women, you have to keep in mind that he lived a life of asceticism. Due to this, they had to share the same burden that he
Please
did,
stop
and they
using
had
that
to live
word.
a similar
Please.
type of life. In the
You
9th
don't know
year
what that
after
word
the
means.
Hijrah, he gave them the opportunity to leave him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the following verse. O Prophet, say to your wives, if you should desire the worldly life and its adornment, then come, I will provide for you and give you a gracious release. Keep in mind the Prophet ﷺ did not need to introduce Islam in order to marry multiple women. It was a common act during pre-Islamic times. Amr ibn Harith narrates when the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away, he did not leave a dinar or a dirham or a male or a female slave. He left only his white mule, on which he used to ride, and his weapons, and a piece of land which he gave in charity for the needy travelers.
So this topic is crucial to understand because many people who don't know who the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, really was, they might make these accusations about his intention. You know, oh, he wanted maybe worldly gains by spreading Islam and becoming this leader and so on and so forth. But this is so easily refuted if you just look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. If he wanted to indulge in the worldly life, he very well could have.
I feel like Saajid has a big problem where he can't actually think for himself and come up with proper reasons why Islam is true. So he appeals to the dumbest person that you could possibly appeal to for for arguments, who is Farid here, and that's just that's sad. I don't know.
Yeah, this is just bad. Hopefully they wrap this up so we can wrap this
Every
up.
single opportunity to do so. Yet he specifically chose to live a life of asceticism. What he truly cared about was conveying the revelation that was given to him,
And
that there's
banging lots
nothing
of
worthy
women.
of worship except Allah. This becomes blatantly obvious if you just look at his life, his lifestyle, the decisions he made. If somebody wants to disbelieve in him, they have that choice. But people should at least be honest. They should at least be genuine regarding who he was. All the decisions that he made were not based on the worldly life and its pleasures. It was all based on there's nothing worthy of worship except Allah. Conveying this message, conveying the fact that Allah sent prophets, conveying the fact that in the hereafter we are going to be judged accordingly, and most importantly, did we worship Allah alone? Did we follow the prophet that was sent? Anybody who tries to convey him otherwise is simply misrepresenting him, alayhi salatu wasalam.
This video, I'm going to be speaking about...
All right, so I think he's on to the Romans point, which, I mean, happy to cover it again, but we've been going almost 2 hours now to get through that nonsense. Saajid and Farid, since we know you guys are checking this out, or you will be checking it out, just so you know, yeah, I think Muhammad's interactions with women did have something to do with his revelation. Not saying that he was intentionally doing this, but his desires were obviously influencing the revelations he was receiving. And don't get ticked off at us for saying that. Aisha herself, as you know, said that. She said, your Lord hastens to satisfy your desires. She said that after one of Muhammad's morally convenient revelations. Whenever he would want something, whenever he would want to satisfy some perverted desire that he had, he would get a revelation telling him that it's okay. So when we see Muhammad getting revelations, oh, even though everyone else can only have 4, you get more. Oh, you got caught having sex with your sex slave in your other wife's bed, and now your wives are mad, and you swore an oath to Allah not to have sex with her anymore, and then Allah tells you, he orders you to break that oath and start having sex with, stuff starts looking really, 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 really convenient. And then, you know, he has a dream about his best friend's 6-year-old daughter and takes this as, oh, Allah's giving her to me. I think that Muhammad's desires obviously had a lot to do with his revelations. As far as the wealth and so on, again, dude had 9 houses and so on. He would get his portion of the war booty. So when he would be struggling financially is when the wars aren't going too well. But with all of that said, what I believe was actually driving Muhammad if you want to respond to something, what I believe was driving Muhammad is tied to him psychologically. When someone loses every father and mother figure he has for the first 8 years of his life, we know what impact that tends to have on people, right? So Muhammad's father died before he was born. Then he went to live with some Bedouins. The Bedouins concluded that he was demon possessed, eventually sent him back when he's about 4.5, I think, sent him back to his mother. Then his mother died when he was 6. Then he was sent to live with his grandfather. His grandfather died when he was 8. So every person he was close to for the first 8 years of his life died or abandoned him. We know what that does. The people who are that young and lose their father figures, they tend to have a problem with authority figures. They tend to rebel against authority figures. They have a problem with father figures, especially with viewing God as a heavenly father. And they have a difficulty forming stable, healthy, emotional attachments to other people. Muhammad checks off every one of them in an extreme fashion. So rebelling against authority, guess what? This guy rebelled against his entire culture and started and subjugated his people. He violently subjugated his people. Notice, this is a guy who, if you abandon him, if you converted to his religion and then left, you had to die. Fear of abandonment. As far as the viewing, having a problem with father figures, what does Muhammad say if you say God has a son or that God is a father? He says the universe is about to split apart over this. The universe is about to fall apart if you say that God is a father, is your father in heaven, right?
The universe will get so mad about this, yeah.
So this is clearly a guy who has a problem with father figures. And notice, you can even read the stories about like Mary. In the Christian versions, Joseph is there. He takes the fathers out of the story, right? He takes the father out of the story so that Mary is more like his mom. So he checks off everybody. And then as far as the lasting, healthy, normal relationships, this is a guy who took the wife of his own adopted son after lusting after her, right? This guy had messed up relationship. And then, now it's a child bride. Oh, now I'm swearing an oath to stop having sex with my slave girl. And his relationships were a disaster. So that's with the father figures. With the mother figures, what you will do, if you lose every mother figure when you're young, you end up trying to have complete control over women. You end up trying to control women as a means of not being abandoned by a female figure. And so what does he do? I mean, he was obsessed with men controlling women, with controlling everything around him. So that's my view on what was really driving Muhammad. He was messed up from the time he was a child, and the impact that's going to have is he wants control over absolutely everything. Does not mean he's consciously aware of this and saying, hey, I really have to control everything. That's what he's wired for. And it is exactly what he did. Islam, Allah, all of this stuff, everything was for Muhammad a means of controlling the world around him, controlling everyone around him, because he was wired to want that. That's my claim. You want to refute something or refute that?
Brilliant. I recently discovered the rapper Kendrick Lamar that I wasn't even aware of in the past.
Can you write something like him?
No, I just discovered that he's a very, very good artist. I thought he was just a regular rapper, but
well, if you can't write something like him, then he's a prophet.
And he has a song where he talks about daddy issues, and this whole speech just reminded me exactly of that, because he basically talks about that. So I keep thinking about that whole him saying we got daddy issues. But there's something I actually wanted to do in the background while you were speaking. I asked my dear new friend ChatGPT to write something about pepperoni pizza in the style of Surah Kafirun, consisting of only 6 lines. And ChatGPT then brought us the following. That say, O lovers of pepperoni's embrace, I reject your vegetable-laden taste, nor do I partake in your cheeseless refrain. For pepperoni's allure, my senses proclaim, in its meaty perfection my cravings arise, an ode to pizza's carnivorous ties. That's what it said.
It's
And
actually
this,
better.
yeah, this sounds much better than the Quran's chapter. Yeah. There are even variations of this. You can make the Chat GPT is Allah. It's clear.
That's powerful
It is
stuff.
clear. Chat GPT is Allah. That's it.
Anarcho-Republican said, David, tell it to Robert Spencer, a Muhammad doubter. I think he means tell that information about Muhammad's psychological issues to Robert. I actually did. I actually laid that down to Robert one day as an argument for Muhammad's existence. So the claim I was making was, it seems pretty unlikely that people who are making up a character like Muhammad would have been aware of how childhood experiences would lead to certain behaviors, and that they would get all of this right from a psychological perspective, like to where you can list what happened to Muhammad as a child and then predict what is this guy going to do. And he does it. He does it exactly. Or you could look at his later life and say, what kind of childhood do you think that guy would have had from a psychological perspective? And it's exactly the sort of childhood he had. It's like, would they really have known that if they were fabricating? Anyway, I told that to Robert. He still doesn't believe Muhammad existed, but he said that's probably, I don't know if he's changed his position because this was a few years ago, but he said that's probably the best argument I've heard for the existence of Muhammad, because the source-wise, he thinks the sources are a big joke. They're too late, even though they're completely scientific. They're scientifically
verifiable. So we talked at the very beginning about Bob and how Bob is very reliable and stuff like that. Now we talked about Robert Spencer, and
see, it's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
How could this have happened? How could this have happened without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making all this work together?
Yeah, you see.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we went through. I mean, going back. This was AP challenging Saajid to debate something, and then he calls it a debate, even though it's just him and Farid laying out evidence for Muhammad. We can assume he laid out what he regards as the strongest, and you could tell by the way his face lit up that he really thought this was powerful stuff.
You know what? I'm actually very I'm kind of relieved that I didn't even watch this video back then when he first published it. I explained at the beginning why I didn't watch it, but it was a response to me, and I didn't even bother watching it. Had I watched it back then with the enthusiasm that I had, I think I would have made a response that wouldn't have been very kind. That would be full of mockery and all that. Yeah, maybe I should get back to it and review it now.
But I mean, isn't it interesting? So we saw the argument from Muhammad not getting instantly killed. That means he's from God.
Yeah, it's proof.
Yeah, and so we pointed out that no, nothing like that. It's not what the verse says. It's not what the pagan Arabs were actually like. And if you take that argument seriously, we can make a much stronger case for other people like the Apostle Paul. And you would not regard it as any evidence for the Apostle Paul, which is why your entire methodology is just it's wrong. It's all like picking and choosing, and if we can twist something into some sort of evidence, we'll just dial it up and call it conclusive proof. Even though if you had a stronger case using the same argument for anything else, we would say it's no evidence at all. Massive problems there. And then the other argument we looked at was how could Muhammad have had such confidence to issue this challenge? And it's the stupidest argument ever. Even if the Quran were the greatest book ever written, that would not mean it's from God. And it most certainly is not the greatest book ever written. The Quran is by far the worst book ever written, in my view. Of every book I've ever read, the Quran is the worst. And I've told you before, I'm not saying that because I don't like the Quran. I don't agree with the vast majority of books I read. It doesn't mean that they're horrible, awfully written books. Some books are brilliantly written and wrong, and I disagree with them. The Quran is horribly written. It's a horribly written mess. And to say that this could only come about from God, you're basically saying God is so inept at writing anything that only he could produce something this bad. It's supernaturally bad. That's what you'd be claiming. And that's a stupid argument.
Not everyone is a good writer, so don't judge.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't buy your Allah. No, I'm convinced, especially by the whole thing, the whole part of nobody could write anything better than the Quran. I just tried it and it didn't work. So for that reason, I think that this is scientifically verifiable proof that Islam is actually true. Yeah,
well, AP has converted.
I testify that there is no God but
Farid,
Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. I just converted.
Saajid and Farid managed to do it with their powerful arguments. So, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. Again, we can only assume that Saajid was giving what he regarded as his most persuasive points, and his most persuasive points are some of the dumbest arguments I've ever seen. There are way better arguments for almost anything, any position you could think of. And this is what he came up with. And not only would he do that, but he would view us as somehow like Allah has hardened our hearts, that we can't see
denying the truth.
We can't see the brilliance of these arguments. It's because Allah has hardened our hearts. Shame on us. But I mean, you should be saying shame on Allah, because the reason we're not seeing this, if we're not seeing it, is because Allah. That's what Allah says. Allah has hardened our hearts. That's why we can't see how secretly brilliant an argument is to say Muhammad was so confident, therefore he must have had special access to the divine. Wild.
This is why he prefaced it with that this is something for true seekers who are genuine and who who want to see the truth, who will analyze the evidences or the proofs. Given here. So people like us who obviously are not convinced by these brilliant proofs. It's just, I mean, our problem is we are simply not genuinely interested in seeking and finding the truth. We are just denying the truth, and therefore wish we are just. I mean, yeah.
So
we're losers.
Yeah. So notice that's what they would say, that the reason we don't see it is because we're stubborn and rebellious and horrible people. And he's only looking for the sincere people. Notice how this built in. See, if you're sincere and a good person, you'll see the power of these arguments and be persuaded.
Just like Andrew Tate.
Yeah. When in reality, they're not looking for sincere people who are seeking the truth about God. They're looking for people who are too ignorant,
too stupid,
and who don't have basic critical thinking skills, and who don't have any of the relevant information to make an informed decision. People who are just going to say, wow, Muhammad survived?
Wow, that makes so much sense.
And then he challenged people to write something like as horrible as the Quran. That must mean he's from God. They're looking for people who can't think their way through any of this. And dude, my goodness, if that's the case they've got, no wonder they rely almost completely on chest thumping nowadays. Oh, he's so strong. Oh, look, Sneeko, he converted. That's our new proof. No wonder you guys are resorting to that now, because you don't have anything that remotely looks like a good argument. All right, man.
Sneeko actually made very good points. He said, I don't like pictures. And Islam doesn't have pictures.
Which religion is against pictures? Oh, Islam. That's the religion for me. That's what they're up to now. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we wanted to go through that. Hey, Farid. I don't know if you're still in here. Farid, I'll tell you what, Farid. I'll tell you what. Saajid said that you had a long list of arguments. Farid, tell us what your best 1 or 2 or 3 are. Like your picks for your most powerful, persuasive arguments for Islam. And we will go through them. We will take a look at them. Notice, guys, whatever else you think about us, we just went through 2 of the Dawah arguments. We just went through them. We played them for all of our viewers so that our viewers get their case as well as hearing our response to them. because our goal is for people to make an informed decision, like to know, okay, here's what the arguments are. Here are some potential problems with the arguments. And now I can sit back and decide whether that is a good argument. The real goal in Islam is to present super stupid, insanely stupid arguments and never allow anyone to hear any criticisms. Because you don't want people making an informed decision. You want people making horribly misinformed decisions, because that's the only way you're going to get them to convert.
Yeah. But one important note that I want to add here is this is all the whole thing that we talked about. This content, our arguments are only for people who are sincere seekers of truth. If you disagree with us at any point, it simply means that you are not sincere. So just to sort that out here.
Everyone agree with everything we say, or you're not sincere, and God has hardened your heart.
Yeah,
all right. So Farid, that offer stands. Also, the offer to join us live stands. You can even pick out your 3 best arguments, or 1 or 2 or 3, whatever you want, best arguments. We can go through them. And if you want to be here to correct any misunderstandings we may have about them, open invitation. You're welcome.
I'm not going to hold my breath.
And if you don't, how much confidence do you really have in your prophet? Wow. Boom. Mind blown. All right. Catch you later, everyone.
Stay away from Islam.